Hey, what's up? And welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions from YouTube and Twitter and answer them here in video format. On this show, I guess this is virtually, right? I'm not virtual. I'm not a virtual human, but I guess if you're watching this video on the internet, then I'm speaking to you virtually. Even though that's not really how I think of it. That's a question to ponder. All right. Anyways, weird non sequiturs aside, let's actually talk about some football. And the first question comes from Josh, who says, since the season is basically over, do you think Jerome Ford should get more touches to see what he got? No. Here's why. You don't have to find out about Jerome Ford right now. You really don't have to find out about him. What you need to do is find out, hey, what's the fit with Kareem Hunt? Is Kareem Hunt so good with Deshaun Watson that we need to extend him? Is Demetric Felton, Demetric Felton's going to factor into this, I guess. Dearness Johnson, like those guys are the guys you need to figure. Guys that you're not sure or pretty sure aren't going to be here next year. You need to see, hey, is there a reason we need to keep him with the new quarterback around, right? So those are guys that are going to be important to look at and evaluate. The fact is, Jerome Ford's going to have all offseason next year to win his job because it's going to be his job to lose. Don't really need to find out about him now. Same thing goes with a bunch of the young players. We need to figure out who needs to come back, right? And if there's a position to where you feel like you have a young guy that could take that spot, sure, give him some playing time. But also, offense is a little bit of a unique spot where defensively this is going to work different, but offensively it's a little bit more of a unique spot because there's a Watson there, right? And that changes everything on how this works for the Cleveland Browns offense. So you want to see parts that might be going in the offseason this year offensively with Watson before you let them go because you don't know if you could have a gold match up there. CTG says, what are the biggest personality traits that you're looking for in a potential defensive coordinator? Biggest personality traits. I don't know. I don't really care what their personalities like. Like, I guess people want more fiery and more demonstrative on the sideline. If that's what people want, sure. I'm just tired of hearing people complain about it at this point. I don't know how much it affects games, but, if people want it, like, we might as well just give them one less thing to complain about. I care about, like, experience, right? What position is this guy from? Where's his experience? Where's his background? Joe Woods was a secondary guy. Do we want to get somebody who's a linebacker guy or a D-line guy? I would love a D-line guy. But D-line guys don't normally get promoted to defensive coordinators. I would love somebody with more of a in the trenches background because I think the strength of this team is going to be Myles Garrett. And I think you should have a defensive coordinator who caters towards the strength, which is Myles Garrett. Right? Make your strength as strong as possible and then hope it carries everything else. That's the idea for me. That's the kind of experience that I want. I want somebody who's had a lot of work with defensive linemen, who can evaluate and help us draft defensive linemen. That's the kind of guy, right? Obviously, you want all the other things going to mesh well with the rest of the coaching staff, but background, experience, these things matter. We are focusing so much when it comes to DC on personality, and the personality is probably like 10% of what really matters with the defensive coordinator, right? What is their area of expertise? What do they bring to the table professionally? It's not just going to be their attitude. Okay. There's a bunch of people you could hire off the literal street right now that could give you that fiery attitude. It's not going to make the defense any better. People who are qualified for that job, they have backgrounds, they have experience. What are those? What's that background? What's that experience? What are you going to be running? How are you going to put Myles Garrett in the best position to be successful? How are you going to help us find players in free agency in the draft to help Myles Garrett be more successful? What is your plan? That's what I want to know. What do you want whoever the new DC's plan to be? Not like their personality traits, but their plan to be. What are they looking for? Again, if we're hiring people to take a job, which this is, and we're not hiring them, but we want to act like we are. But again, if you're hiring somebody to take a job, the resume should matter, right? What you have done before. What's your expertise? Do you fit what we want? What I want personally is somebody that's going to get in here, and I could care less if the secondary is not as good as it was this year. I could care less if the safeties, like I want to make sure that whoever the new DC is, their focus or their way that they're going to build this defense or want to build this defense is through the defensive line, through the strength. Myles Garrett. Who's the best player on the team? Myles Garrett. Build through that strength. I think the big critical flaw of this defense has been that it's built through the strength of the secondary. And for some teams that works, but when you have Myles Garrett on your team, that does not work. You want to know why Pittsburgh and TJ Watt puts up more stats and is in position to make bigger plays or more, what would you say? More of those plays you can see on TV, right? Because they're both really good players. But the reason they do that is because Pittsburgh is built through the defensive line. The defense is built through the defensive line. So those are going to be the players that are going to be put in the best position to be successful. Cleveland's not built like that. And they've never been built like that when they've had Myles Garrett outside of Greg Williams. And Greg Williams was the idiot who told Myles Garrett to use one pass rush move. So don't want Greg Williams back. I don't care about the personality traits. I don't care if they scream and yell. Like if they do enough of that to make you happy so we don't have to hear about it, cool. But like, what's the plan? How are you going to build this defense? That's what's the important parts of this conversation. If we just focus this thing on who yells the most and who has the most likable personality, we're not going to find a good defensive coordinator. We're just going to keep talking about the same three names. It's about what these candidates bring to the table. That's what's most important. What do they bring to the table? What do they offer? What is their plan? What's their background? When things go wrong, where is your area of expertise that you're going to lean back to? Right? When it all is on the tables, what are you most knowledgeable in? Because that's what you're going to fall back to when stuff gets tough. Right? Are you, because when Joe Woods, when stuff gets tough, he trusts the secondary. At the end of the day, he's going to trust the secondary. That's why we don't do zero blitzing that much, right? Because he trusts his secondary to be able to drop 5 of those guys back and make a play. What's the background? That's the stuff that I want to discuss with this DC. His personality, could care less. I really could care less. I understand why people care, but I don't think that affects winning. And all I want is a winning football team. And it's so frustrating because this team is so close. They are so close to being a winning football team. But it feels like it's a million miles away right now because we can't have both sides of the ball play the way that they need to at the same time. If you could just take the defense from last year and this year's offense, we'd be the greatest team in football right now. But we can't get that together. We've seen glimpses of it. We've seen little spurts of it. And every time we've seen it, this team has whipped a contending team's ass so badly that their fans never want to speak of those games anymore. But it happens like once a year and only for the Cincinnati Bengals. Like if we could just be that team and figure out how we're going to put 2 and 2 together, that's all. The talent's there. I feel like we just made a mistake with how they built the defense and the structure that they built it around. I think it should be built around Myles Garrett. It is not built around Myles Garrett right now. That's what my hope is. Let's move on to the next question. IDK Fight Me says, How concerned are you for the O-line? It seems like they haven't been the standard the last couple of weeks. Could be worse with Posick out after a few weeks. Something to worry about, or was the Bills and Dolphins attack that good? Here's what I'll say. I think there's two things going on. One, the O-line is banged up, right? When you run the ball as much as the Cleveland Browns, and we do run the ball quite often, and I know some people are going to argue with me on that, but they do run the ball often. You're going to accumulate injuries on the offensive line, right? Running the ball requires your offensive linemen pulling a lot, moving, getting into piles, going downfield. The rate of injury when you run the ball with your offensive line, much higher. So now they're accumulating injuries, right? Luckily for the Browns, they're not getting a bunch of injuries at a bunch of different positions at the same time. They're getting an injury at a position at a time, right? Center goes out, but tackle's there, right? They're not losing like a tackle, a guard, and a center. So they've been fortunate in that, but they've been missing pieces, right? The week before Posick goes out, Wyatt Teller goes out. When Wyatt Teller comes back, Posick's out. You know what I mean? Yodi Freehold been on the offensive line for like 4 or 5 weeks in a row because he's had to plug in. So that's part of it. I think another part of it is, I've said this all year, the Browns offense is a good offense, but it's a limited offense. And the issue with the limited offense is that the more weeks go by, the more teams find a way to exploit it. That's why Deshaun Watson coming back is so important for this team, because it takes limitations off of the offense. All of a sudden, now they're not a limited offense. The ways they can attack are not limited. They're allowed to get more creative in some of their pass protections. They're allowed to do more to negate teams from just sending everybody they have at the offensive line. So those are two things that I think are going on. Injuries and the fact that the Browns offense is limited because Jacoby Brissett's a fine quarterback, but Jacoby Brissett's not a quarterback that's going to deter anybody from anybody's game plan. And I think that's been the big problem. That's why limited offenses don't win a lot in the NFL, even when they're good. That's why you need a quarterback. Ryan says, do you see Barry picking up a center to start for, or are they sticking with Freehold? They're going to stick with Freehold. And I think Freehold would be better than he was this week. He was just kind of thrown in there at center. If you get a whole week to practice snaps and to get comfortable playing center, I think he'll be fine. I really do. I think much has been made. Freehold's been pretty good at guard. He's a good offensive lineman. He just had a rough day at center. I think he'll be fine if given a chance. This is like when Nick Harris went out there in his rookie year and got completely blown up because he was too small. It was just, hey, this dude was uncomfortable snapping the ball because he's clearly never done it in an NFL game before. Or at least I don't think he's done it in an NFL game before. Ben Saffer says, first 3 moves you're making in the offseason if I'm Andrew Berry. I'm not going to go specific moves here because I don't know who's going to be available and what moves are there. Here would be my 3 priorities, right? How do I do to the defense last year what I did to the offense last year, right? Last year, the offense was abysmal. They had to shake out some pieces, move in some new guys, basically do a soft reset of the offense, and they fixed it. Defensively, okay? What are your 3 areas to go and fix that? 1, figure out why it is that we have failed drafting defensive tackles. What is the failure in that process? Is it the advice I'm getting from the position coaches? Is it the advice I'm getting from the coordinator? What is the breakdown in this? Because the Browns have been able to draft good offensive linemen. The Browns have been able to draft good running backs. The Browns have been able to draft good wide receivers. The Browns have been able to draft good corners, good linebackers, a decent safety. Not like somebody who's like lights out, but Grant Delpit's been all right. But deep tackle, I mean, I wish we could find a defensive tackle that was as good as their job as Grant Delpit. And Grant Delpit ain't even that good. You know what I mean? Like, that's how bad the defensive tackle drafting has been. What is the breakdown there? Is it our process as general manager? Is it something we're doing as a scouting department? Or is it simply, are we going for players that coaches want that our process is saying no to? What is the breakdown, right? Because if it's the process, change the process. That would be the first one. You know what I mean? If it's the advice you're getting, change the people you're talking to get that advice. Second thing, and obviously this kind of goes with all of it, you would probably search for a new defensive coordinator. I've gone on enough about what they need to do there. And then the third thing would be, okay, evaluate what you got offensively from Deshaun Watson in these 6 games and see what he likes to do really well, what he likes to do and what he does really well. And then find ways to just turn the gears up on that. 3 areas of attack. 2 on defense, 1 on offense. I think that's where the focus will be. Next comes from Charlie. Should we get rid of Jedrick Wills? No. Why would you get rid of Jedrick Wills? That doesn't make much sense to me. Next question comes from Saggy, who says, what do I think is going to happen to Greg? Yeah, he's going to get moved outside. I think Joe Woods is the only defensive coordinator in football that would have done that. I didn't think it was a good idea when he did it. But hey, he was coming off a good year. Why not, right? Yeah, it wasn't a good idea. I'm not saying you ruined him. He's still a good corner. It's just like, it was what my fear was happened, which is the ideal of putting Greg Newsome in the slot was, hey, it's going to make it easier for us to get off the field now if we put one of our best corners in the slot, because the slot's what's been killing us when it comes to third down. Turns out the slot's the slot, right? Like, whoever you put in there, there's only so much. The slot corner can only be but so good. You know what I mean? Like, they can only be so good because of the rules and the position that they're put in. They only can have but so much impact in the game, which is why you don't draft one very high. When's the last time you heard about a Hall of Fame slot corner? They can only be but so good because the rules are such that they're limited, right? You can't be as physical as you want to be. You can't. These guys can't be that big, so they can't be the big run fit guys. Like, they can only be but so many things, and it's so limited that even if you put a great corner, which I do believe Greg is a great corner, in the slot, you're not going to get a great slot corner. You're going to get a slot corner. So you're sacrificing a great corner to make him a normal corner. Didn't make much sense to me. He'll be moved back outside. He'll be fine back outside. He don't need to be playing slot no more, because you could get the same level of slot corner play from some dude that you paid $3 million a year. That's why I thought the move was dumb. Theoretically, I get why they would do it, but I don't think he thought about the limitations that the slot position creates for a slot corner before he did it. But that's it for the questions. Thank you guys for asking them. Y'all have a great day. Have a good